Good evening everyone, hope everyone's doing well. This is going to be my third take of trying to do a video basically about trying to stay true to oneself. Who said it's impressive you can be 50 people? Shut up you! I'm not that bad, fucking hell! But I do believe it's important to be true to oneself, even as the two-tier policing society is going by. Now I wouldn't be surprised if people think I've got a grudge against the emergency services, but that's not true at all. I mean, how can you hold a grudge against people whose job it is to save our lives, and sometimes those of the invaders as well? Likewise, do you think I would hate hunky men who go out of their way to fight fires, not with boxing gloves though mind, but they go to fight fires and save people from burning buildings or from catastrophic hazards? Or what about when wildfires spread around the country? Who are you going to rely on then? I'm sure Pauline and her garden hose ain't going to do shit with that. So no, I don't hate the emergency services. I just hate the two-tier policing society. But opinions can sometimes change. And believe it or not, even the two-tier police can have the opinion of myself changed if they actually start doing their job. The forces which basically have less moral credibility than Ebenezer on a fundraiser, and just as morally fucking bankrupt. And I know YouTube is going out of its way to try and censor me. After all, back when I first reached 4,000 subscribers, I was getting quite a few views on my videos. Some were obviously more interesting than others, or I guess had the buzzwords of the latest hot topic and what have you, and I was giving my thoughts on them. But why is it that when I try to talk about these things now, I'll be lucky if I get 500 views, let alone the can't get the words out now. Put your dentures back in. Right, anyway, it's now much more difficult for me. I'll be lucky to see 500 views, where unlike the 2,000 or so that I had on some of my previous videos. Were there some that included names like Tommy Robinson, Paul Thorpe, Martuzzi, etc, etc? Yeah, there were. But they weren't my most popular videos. Now that one actually belonged, oddly enough, to the moment where I said, I think it was like 9,000 policemen had left the force, and over half of those people were leaving voluntarily. That video alone got around 78,000 views. I think the most some of my other videos have gotten is like 10, 20,000. So if nothing else, I can prove beyond doubt I don't need to sponge off of big names. But they do, of course, help. Maybe I should try font size 108 for a better result. Anyway, I don't need to rely on other people to get my views. I don't beg with money, although I do have my PayPal in the description of most of my videos, though I've been slacking lately. But I'm not going to sit here and go, please sir, spare some change. Because that's not how I like to operate. Because I'm not entitled to a dime of your money. Now, if people want to donate, they're more than welcome to. And before people... God, shall I put my dentures back in again? Before anybody starts jumping on that wagon of, oh, look at him, he's a grifter. Is it really grifting if all you're doing is just putting your PayPal or whatever in the description of your videos? Hell, all sorts of people do it because, as the old saying goes, you don't ask, you don't get. Well, as far as the BBC, I didn't ask for their license and they ain't getting shit. But many people put their links in the description. Carl Benjamin has done it, aka Sargon of Akkad. You have Martuzzi doing it. You have Dan Wootton doing it. You have Tommy Robinson sometimes doing it. You have Paul Thorpe doing it. Just to name a few people. There are people who actively voice their need for support and donations far more than I ever would. I'm not going to be like that fucking beggar from Monty Python's, well, what was that film? The Life of Brian, that was it. I can't believe I remember that. I'm not going to sit there and just pester and be obnoxious. No. If people want to donate, they're more than willing, they're more than inclined to do so if they want to. And I've always said, look after yourselves first before looking after me. After all, you're more important than I am. Let's get that right. And that's something I will, again, in line with the whole point of the video, I will always remain true to myself on that front. But regardless of whether or not I make any money from donations, I will still do these videos. You know why? Standards and principles. It also reminds me of that very first protest I ever went to, back at the Old Bailey, when Tommy Robinson was facing charges basically for filming outside Leeds Crown Court over a PRG, I think you know what I mean. The types of people that basically got a little bit too hands-on, shall we say, with young girls and young women. Yeah, I am saying it for the sakes of the YouTube censorship algorithm, because we all know how much of a bunch of fascists they are in the left-wing Silicon Valley tech group that is YouTube. But then we've known that they like to socially engineer stuff ever since, I'd probably say, 2020. And that's probably being a bit generous. But as I've said before, as far as how I operate this channel, how I run it is concerned, and this is the thing about me, and you lot can say it with me. I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm going to say it exactly how it is, and I'll do my best not to bullshit you. Good luck getting that out of the oligarchy or their mouthpieces. That is the mainstream media. I mean, we all know what the oligarchy was doing as far as the Welsh choir boy is concerned, and I think you know which one I mean, aka Southport. We also know how much that they tried to basically deny the fact that there were such things as PRGs operating in major cities around the United Kingdom: Rotherham, Rochdale, Telford, Manchester, Liverpool, just to name a few. And if I spent even 5 minutes researching the PRGs, I probably could come up with at least another 20, 30 fucking names. And it's funny how it took one man to actually speak out about the PRGs, or just the MRGs that were going out of their way, attacking our women and their children, and using them for their benefits. Meanwhile, we had politicians who were telling the victims that they should just shut up for the sakes of diversity. But it was only when Mr. Robinson came out and actually pointed out these things and actually drilled the point home, they were forced to talk about it. They had to basically break off of what they were true to, being lying sacks of shit, that is. Just like how Keir the traitor Starmer, the lying, loathsome pile of shit and treachery that is our Prime Minister, he didn't want to protect the people. He put on a show and said, oh, I will deliver change for the working class. Well, he delivered change all right, he just didn't tell us it was going to be bad change. He didn't tell us about the fact that he was going to be protecting the Welsh choir boy. And don't forget, Keir the traitor Starmer is the same person who, when the COVID-19 84 lockdowns hit and the scamdemic, Boris Johnson was found to be going out and getting himself plastered during the lockdown. He was breaking the regulations, the rules as it were. Keir the traitor Starmer called for his resignation. Then Keir the traitor Starmer, it turned out, was also doing this. Did he take his own advice and resign? Like hell did he. But we all know Keir the traitor Starmer has as much honesty as a third-rate car salesman, and all the credibility of a low-grade bank clerk. So I guess is it any wonder that that lying sack of shit can't even tell us the truth, or even stand by his own principles when he's caught with his hand in the cookie jar. No, I didn't empty the jar. Shut it. I did not. I haven't had any cookies. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, we have a Prime Minister who says that he's going to serve the people. There's only a few people he serves: himself, BlackRock, the WEF, and Davos. He has no other allegiances. He, I would almost go as far as saying, doesn't even have an allegiance to his own damn Labour Party. Although I think you know what I'd rather be calling those people. It begins with N and ends in E. I also didn't know to become a Labour politician, you had to have an IQ lower than 10. Yes, you had to have a single-digit IQ to actually get in there, because of the absolute density of these morons in there, including people like David the Archbishop of Racism Lammy, Angela Rayner, who had to leave the old growler. Then you have Rachel Reeves. Sorry, I mean Rachel Reeves. Or maybe I was right first time. We have, of course, the infamous Jess Phillips as well. And yes, that is the same woman who had basically Carl Benjamin go up to her and say, or tweet and say, I wouldn't even argue. Now, devil's advocate, could you say it was a little distasteful? Yeah, you probably could. But England is known for its dark humour. And the way I see it is, technically, Carl Benjamin hasn't broken any laws. But my God, did it send Twitter, the old Twitter that is, into an absolute uproar. The lines from the Zoom must have escaped again. Anyway, it sent old Twitter into an absolute uproar at that comment alone. And our politicians still use that just for political point scoring, just like they use the death of Joe Cox. They use the death of Joe Cox for their political point scoring. The thing is, the left and the oligarchy will do anything and everything they can to try and suppress debate and free speech. That's why you see them resort to ist and phobes, because that's all they've got. Almost sounds like bread and circuses, doesn't it? Ists and phobes. Maybe that should be included in Tommy Robinson's next book. But one thing is for certain, I'll be staying true to myself. I don't need to resort to racism. I don't need to resort to things like homophobia or transphobia or whatever. The thing though is, they use those terms like homophobia and transphobia and what have you to say we have an irrational fear of certain people. Now, while I will grant that it's more catered towards that religion, you know, from which the PRGs originate, I think you know which one I mean, they use that word, ophobia, to silence anybody criticising this so-called religion. Because they know full well they're the ones who are, I guess to use the left wing's own terms, full of hate. There's only one type of people that I genuinely hate, maybe two. Actually no, I could name a few more. Do you want to know the types of people I hate? Those who dial M for, you know what? The T's, the R's, the G's, or rather the GG's. Basically anybody who commits an atrocity here in the United Kingdom, or anywhere else for that matter. A mass bang bang, or a mass... you know what I mean. Basically those are the types of people I genuinely hate. And guess what? This is the thing that always gets the lefties foaming. It has nothing to do with the colour of their skin, how old they are, if you want to use me as an example, how much I weigh, whether they're male or female. That's the thing. It is not discriminatory because of the fact it doesn't depend on people's characteristics. And I will remain true to myself on that. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, it's these people because they're this, that, and the other. No, I say it because it's mainly through statistics that people are saying, well, there seems to be a problem coming from X community, or Y community, or Z group of people. The amount of foam the leftists must be giving off, you could probably fill a whole pub full of tankards at that point. And unlike the left, unlike the career politicians, unlike the mainstream media, I don't need to lie. I've already said I will do my best not to bullshit you. If I do make a mistake, it's usually the exception, never the rule, and I usually apologise for it, or I correct myself. So, if I get a town wrong, like I say this happened in that's the third time now I've had to resist the strokes. Attleborough. I can't hold out much longer, let me tell you. Anyway, if I said it was in Attleborough, but it was actually in Chelmsford instead, for example, I will be quick to say, whether it's in a quick comment and I pin it, or if I say it in my next video, I'll say, I said this, I meant to say this, it was actually there, my apologies. Like, when I make a mistake, I'm the first person to put my hands up for it. The left wing and the mainstream media and Keir the traitor Starmer, you'll be lucky if they apologise for lying to you about what colour the sky is, quite frankly. All the while, they're trying to say, back in the past, and perhaps they'll do it to this present day as well, because they know full well how much of a threat alternative media is. They will start saying, I suspect in the near future, we're going to crack down on misinformation. We're going to start arresting people for misinformation. They threatened that during the Southport riots. If the mainstream media, if our two-tier policing society want to look for people for spreading, or look at people spreading misinformation, I recommend they start at 10 Downing Street, and I could even guide them along from there. But here's the thing, we don't need to lie. We don't need to tell more lies than the whole of Keir the traitor Starmer's manifesto, because the truth will defend itself. I've used this expression a few times, but I have said in those times before, I've said, every time you tell a lie to someone, it's another story you have to remember. And if I wanted more stories, I'd have gone to the fucking library. Anyway, if you keep telling lies, it's another a story you have to remember. Whereas if you tell nothing but the truth will defend itself. And you won't have to worry about remembering things, as you will have the truth do all the hard work for you. And just remember, their lies, they went to extreme lengths to try and do up Mr. Robinson as a team. Thank you. And the reason they did that is very, very simple. If he was done up as a T, they could have had hundreds of thousands of people in the United Kingdom locked up, just like that, for supporting a T. Because obviously they know full well that's against the law, or supporting a T organisation. That's why Keir the traitor Starmer wanted to do that. That's why they went to extreme lengths of getting the Attorney General, as far as the Silence documentary is concerned, to try and lock up Tommy Robinson. When they go after stroke number one, when they go after Tommy Robinson, oh, for fuck's sake, I told you I couldn't hold out much longer, but when they go after him, you can be assured of three things. One, it's politically motivated. Two, it's part of a grand scheme to stop us from resisting the oligarchy. And three, whether or not Tommy Robinson wins in court, he still loses. Because at the end of the day, the process is the punishment. Being dragged through the courts, having to pay money for legal fees, although Elon Musk helped him this time, causing him and his family unnecessary and undue stress. That's the thing. They're not doing it because they want to be true to themselves and that they want to be honest and truthful. They're doing it because they want to stop us people from fighting back against the treacherous dictatorship. Because no matter what side of the fence you're on, that's what this government has become right now. And I've also made multiple attempts, basically on my videos, admittedly, and not actually contacting them, because I don't trust the police. But I've made call-outs, and I've called out Norfolk Constabulary to say, if you think I'm breaking the law, come and get me. You know where I live, you've come to my house several times, why don't you show us what you're made of? Because unlike the lefties, I've got the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually stand up to treasonous, treacherous organisations. And here's the thing, if you were to ask me to stand up to our two-tier policing society back, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, I would have said, why the fuck would I want to do that? Because the police were at least actually more respectable then. They were actually more appreciated back then. They didn't actually discriminate against the indigenous people of the United Kingdom. I find it funny how I've just loaded up Firefox as well, that's saying the BBC is bigger than news. That was written by the Observer, by the way. I wonder what drugs they were smoking. Because if there's that... Stroke number 2. If they're this high as a kite, I want some. Is this the same BBC, by the way, Observer, that went out of their way to digitally alter the Trump speech the other day and basically make it out that he was saying we will fight like hell rather than the actual contest? And the two speeches were an hour apart, by the way, when what he actually said in the speech was we will basically stand by our congressmen and women and give them all the support in the world and what have you. Is that the same BBC you're referring to, the Observer? Stephen Armstrong? Just... I can't help someone who is completely vitamin deficient in vitamin I, Q. I really can't. It's like how I decided to stand up for my rights when I was at JLL. Basically, I started to realise nearer the time of when I was thinking of leaving that place anyway, or as I was working up there anyway, that I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to get rid of me at this point. And I was realising that they were discriminating against me for not my political views, because I didn't do my politics until I started with Evander. But JLL were discriminating against my autism, and they were even breaching data protection by bringing my family involved into my matters when I'm technically an adult. And I decided to stand up for my rights. And while I wish I'd gone to court with that shit, I might still be able to for all I know, but I want this all behind me, to be honest. I stood up for myself, and I made the company pay. If the police dare to try and come after me, I have made sure I have covered all bases. I've never advocated for violence. I've never advocated for tea. I've never advocated for CW. I've never advocated for a VR. I've never advocated for riots. I've never advocated for anything to do with law breaking. That's the thing. I've been very, very careful where I step. Because right now, the UK is effectively in a complete minefield. Because right now, we have people who are coming over from countries worse off than us that are effectively using us as a luxury lifestyle upgrade. And you can't blame a lot of these people for doing that. What would you do if you were living in some place and you were literally only getting a few bob a month or whatever? Whereas you come over here, you could get like a couple of grand a month. I think you know what you'd be doing. I think we all know it as well. So we can't wholly blame the migrants for being here, but we can blame them for all the crimes that they sometimes commit. But that's not why I'm making the video. As I said, it's staying true to yourself. I am never going to deviate as far as the law's concerned. I am going to do everything I can to stay within the letter of the law. I would consider going outside of the law the nuclear option, quite frankly. That's how it, CW, and VR should be looked at. They shouldn't be looked at something like... I know Vindicator Strikes Back said people think it's a game. I'm not treating this like a fucking game, let me tell you. I understand how deadly serious a CW is. I mean, all we need to do is look back into the 1910s, the 1930s, and 1940s and look at the two that happened then. Actual world blanks. And look at all the people who died during all that. And remember, there was Remembrance Sunday. I've had my 2-minute silence yesterday to remember those died in that horrible, horrible event. Because at the end of the day, we owe our servicemen and women so much. If it weren't for them in defeating that country, we'd all be speaking German. We'd all be effectively saying mein Leben and all that stuff. But we are always told that we shouldn't be proud of our English heritage, that we should feel the white guilt, as it were, that we should be ashamed of being white. Let me tell you something. I don't give a shit if I'm as white as a sheet or as black as an onyx stone. Your colour of skin does not determine how patriotic you are. Your principles, your beliefs make you patriotic. That's what does it. Nothing else. This idea of, oh, you're a white person, so you can't be patriotic, is complete bollocks. You are never going to tell me that I'm not patriotic. You are never going to tell me that I'm not going to fight for my own country. You are not going to tell me that I am not going to defend myself if I have someone try to bust through those doors. I will grab whatever I have to hand to defend myself. Because the moment someone's coming in with a bladed instrument, or perish the thought a shooter, you're goddamn right I'm going to defend myself. If they try to use their implement, their human rights, in my humble opinion, are forfeit. Because they don't care about my human rights, so why should I care about theirs? But I'm not going to go over the self-defense thing again, as I've already done a video over it. But the bottom line, to sum this all up, is we have to keep to ourselves. We have to remain true to ourselves. It's hard, it's tough, and there are times where you want to scream, you want to shout, you want to let the words dry out. But the truth is, we must remain true to ourselves. Because at the end of the day, if we aren't true to ourselves, what do we have left? What do we have left if we can't stay true to ourselves? Honestly. The left don't have principles. The media don't have principles. Keir the traitor Starmer doesn't have any principles. That's just to name a few. Our two-tier policing society have skewed principles where they prioritise protecting the PRGs, the MRGs, the Rs, the Ts, the dial M for you-know-whats. They're more interested in protecting those who would threaten our society than those who just want to live in their own damn country. They are more interested in locking you or me or Brenda on the internet for posting a mean tweet or a video on the internet or a social media post. They're more interested in going after people on the tweets rather than the streets. Make no mistake. There is something very, very dark on the horizon. And I'm not talking about the earlier nights because it's winter. Something is dawning. This is going to get very, very ugly in the very near future. I would love to say that we're going to reach the next general election, but the cold, bitter truth is, I think our government are putting us in a position where it is almost, if not completely, impossible for us to avoid what direction we're going in next. I just hope to Christ the English people are ready to fight for their country. I hope it can be done by peace, but I fear that the work of our founding fathers and forefathers is not over. And if we do not pick up the mantle, the children we leave behind will have the unfavourable task of picking up the pieces.